Hoopla warriors, today is a good day to sleep in, which I did. I was shocked how late the cat and dog let me sleep in. When I finally got up, it was like 9:42, I think, and usually they get me at 8 a.m. sharp, so they were very generous. So I slept for like almost 12 hours. So pretty cool. Oh, good to have you here, Darth. So yes, today, starting the DS9 stream, I'll also be beginning a new segment, Klingon Word of the Day. And at the end of the stream, which will be about an hour, we will preview episode 4 of the Royal Hour. Wait, episode 3 of the Royal Hour. Yes, which comes out on Monday. There we go. I'm working on episode 4 right now. As you know, I get very mixed up in my head. It's the concussion. So anyway, DS9. The DS9... I always try to decide, is TNG, DS9, or Voyager pilot, which one's the worst? They're all quite bad. Like, it's amazing the show all made it for 7 seasons, given how bad the pilots are. So this one starts really in a really weird way. Well, one issue I have with DS9 in general is I feel like their opening is super boring. Versus TNG or Voyager, DS9 is so boring. Their like opening song and all. Anyway, so it starts and they show, they flash back to Wolf 359, where Picard was Locutus of Borg and he helped the Borg against his will. That led to the death of Sisko's wife. He was a first officer on a ship. He escaped with Jake. He tried to save his wife, but she was already dead from like stuff falling on her. That really derailed his life, and made things really hard for him. So now they're like, all right, Sisko, we're putting you as the commander of this space station. So this is when in TNG they introduced the whole Cardassian occupation of Bajor. So now Cardassians are withdrawing from Bajor and no longer occupying it. Bajor is going to try to recreate itself as a planet and their government and everything. So the Cardassians leave the space station that they had built just outside of Bajor, like 4-hour shuttle ride, I think it is. And so they leave it, and Bajor now has control of the space station, and the Federation is there with them, because the Federation ultimately wants Bajor to eventually join the Federation. But Bajor's like, we need to figure out our own shit before we join the Federation, and so that's like the whole... Sisko's ultimate objective is to like support Bajor in becoming part of the Federation and form this alliance with them. And so he's coming on to the space station, DS9 as it is known. We meet Kira, who just for this 2-part episode has an awful haircut. So it's like Ensign Rose's haircut, but it just looks much worse on her. They get rid of it right away, which was a good call. Everybody like extremely overacts in this episode, none more so than Avery Brooks, which is a theme continuing throughout the series for him, because I'm pretty sure he was a stage actor before he was a screen actor, so like you can really tell in the way he acts that he's like trying to do all those things you would do on stage that just don't work on screen, because everybody sees your face. You don't have to like overact, you don't have to voice act in that way. So anyway, Sisko goes off to see... Sisko and Jadzia Dax go off on the shuttle to figure out the whole wormhole thing. And there he's able to connect with the prophets, who are the gods of the Bajorans, who are aliens that live in the wormhole, is what others call them. I agree with you there, Darth Kalavac. I do think the Bajorans are a very well thought out species in Star Trek. A lot of them don't have that depth to them, but they definitely do here, the Bajorans. And so, when Sisko goes into wormhole, he makes contact with the prophets unintentionally, who like guide him through his trauma. Basically, they're like, you're still stuck in the past from when your wife died. It's time for you to move on and create a new life. And so they help him kind of like move past his trauma a little bit. Like, obviously it's still there. He's not like magically cured, but he starts to like, he gets a new lease on life, basically. And he is deemed the emissary of the prophets because he made contact with them and he fulfilled a prophecy that the Bajorans have. Prophecies are a big thing in the Bajorans. So yeah, this episode's pretty terrible. I'm gonna give it a D. It's just, you know, they really didn't have their footing yet. I mean, every of the seasons of the 90s and 80s are really rough at the start. And this one is just as much so. Okay. No, I feel like it goes up from here. Already this episode is better. So, one thing that DS9 has that makes it better, in my opinion... Well, okay, Darth, I feel like are you comparing it to other pilots, or are you comparing it overall to episodes of DS9? Because I would say compared to other episodes of DS9, it's not good. Compared to the other pilots, maybe a B. Anyway, oh yeah. Anyway, hey Otter, sorry to hear there was a storm. So this episode... Oh, so one thing that DS9 has going for it is it's less episodic than Voyager, and especially less than TNG. I'm gonna have to disagree with you, Darth. I think there's way better episodes. And then, so they get, like, themes and issues that carried over, and that really makes the series have more depth to it. I think in some ways it creates more character development than it's, than TNG, especially, and somewhat of Voyager as well. Whereas TNG went more like TOS. This episode, this guy comes on board. So Kira was, they call her, she said she was a Bajoran terrorist, but I think that's unfair. She was like a freedom fighter. Like, her people were being genocided. I think it's ridiculous to call her fighting back a terrorist. Like, she was a resistance fighter, and there were many different groups and factions, and so this guy comes on board. She's someone she knew. And he says he's coming for, like, amnesty or whatever. He's like, I'm not part of the Khon-Ma anymore, because the Khon-Ma was like a militant group that he was part of. And he's like, I'm not part of them anymore. I wanna move forward like you've done. And she's like helping him out and stuff. But it turns out he's actually conspiring with the Duras sisters. You guys remember Duras? Yes, you're right, Charlemagne. So the issue is, in the beginning, Kira is very anti-Federation. She does not think it's time for them to have a relationship. She doesn't trust the Federation. But then she realizes this guy she knows is lied to her, and he's trying to, like, destroy the space station, so the Federation will leave. And so she has to decide, oh my gosh, what am I gonna go with what I feel like is my loyalty to Bajor, or am I gonna do what I think is right? And so she tells Sisko about it, and they stop him, but it's hard for her. So I think this one's pretty solid. I think this one, I'm gonna give this one B tier, because it really sets the tone for, like, the rest of the series, where they're gonna have, like, it sets up a lot of stuff that's gonna continue on. Like the issue, like Charlemagne said, between Kira and the Federation, and figuring out her role, and all the resistance factions, and all that stuff, which is throughout the first season especially, but then throughout the series. Next. Oh my god, this episode. This is so funny. Alright, we're on the same page now, Darth. Excellent. Have you watched the pilot recently, Darth? Because it's pretty weird. Oh, whoa, I went too far. My bad. Oh god, this one. This one. Yeah, I missed one. My bad, Charlemagne. Fixed. This one, so, Odo worked on the space station during the Cardassian, occupation, which he technically worked for the Cardassians, but he was more of a neutral party. But Odo believes in law and order above all else. So that, you know, that's kind of his thing. So some people view him, like, most of the Bajorans view him favorably, but some are kind of like, well, you worked for the Cardassians, bro. But he doesn't really view himself of having worked for them, so it's kind of complicated. Anyway, this guy comes on board, he gets murdered, and he gets unalived. And then, Odo well, as far as we know, Odo's framed. Odo says he's framed. And all the evidence points to Odo because the guy gets unalived in a holosuite. There's no records of anyone else entering. Only person who could have gotten in there is Odo because he's a shapeshifter who can turn to liquid. And he has to turn to a liquid every... Is it... How many hours? Somebody remember how many hours? I wanted to say 11, but that's not right, is it? 20 hours? It's gotta be more than 11. Anyway, that's his natural state, is a liquid, glowy goo. So they're trying to figure out, like, what happened to this guy. And the Bajorans are growing restless, wanting to take Odo down. Turns out the guy had made a clone of himself. And then unalived his own clone in order to frame Odo. But since they both had the same DNA, there was only one person logged as having gone into the holosuite. So yeah, they figure it all out. This one's okay. But it doesn't really add anything. I would say it's like mid-range. It doesn't really add anything. 18, thank you. I was like, 11's too short. Personally, I don't think it like adds much to it. I mean, I guess it kind of sets up a little bit of Odo. I think I'm gonna go with B because it sets up some of Odo's story. Babel, this episode's terrible. It's so funny. So, in this episode, there is a virus that first Chief O'Brien gets, and then everybody starts getting it slowly. It's an aphasia virus. Aphasia, you guys know I'm a speech therapist, so obviously I know a lot about aphasia. People often get it after strokes or a brain injury. There's different types of aphasia. In this one, they have which would be like Wernicke's aphasia, which is where you're speaking words fluently, but what you're saying doesn't make sense. Versus the kind of aphasia where you can't get your words out, but you... Anyway, so that's what they have. It turns out they figure out it's a virus that was planted by the Bajorans, which is pretty freaking smart. That Charlemagne, yeah, I know that guy. I could see his face in my head totally. So they figure out that this group of Bajorans did it. They like are able to track down, and of course at the last minute they come up with a cure. It's a little ridiculous. I feel like this one's I don't know. I feel like it's D tier. Guess just for me, I feel like I feel like DS9 gets so good that I'm inclined to rank a lot of these lower. And this one's a little silly, I think. Yeah, I agree with you, Darth. It's silly. The acting isn't great because the script isn't great. They didn't have a lot to work with. So it's not great. Oh, this one is kind of I don't know. I kind of like this one because it's an O'Brien episode, of which there are many. So O'Brien, this guy, he is Tosk. That's all he says about his name or species. He ends up on board to fix his ship, but he's like, I gotta get out of here. Eventually it's figured out he's from this species where there's like he's from this planet where there's like two species. His species is the hunted, the other species is the hunter. And so his like main thing, his whole quest in life is to keep the hunt going while the hunters hunt him. He kind of befriends O'Brien, but he gets in trouble because he's trying to escape, and the Federation is like, what's your deal, bro? Yeah, there's a lot not explained, Charlemagne. And so then the hunters catch up to him while he's on DS9. They're like, dude, you got captured by these people, that's so lame. And they're gonna take him, and I think they unalive him once he's caught. Anybody? I don't remember if that's directly stated. And so... Yeah, Voyager liked the idea. I think you're right, Charlemagne. They're much scarier, though. And so O'Brien helps him escape. And Sisko knows O'Brien helps him escape, but he kind of like lets it happen. Because they don't want this, they don't like what this species is doing, but they can't directly stop it. So Tosk escapes, continues the hunt. And then O'Brien's like, has to talk to Sisko later, and Sisko's like, come on, O'Brien. And O'Brien's like, yeah. But then Sisko's basically like, yeah, okay, I let you do it. I think this one's pretty good. I love a good... I wouldn't A tier it, but it definitely solid B tier. I enjoy O'Brien. Oh, that's right, Darth. Thank you. Yeah, because they view him as having like been a failure of their species. I like O'Brien becoming buddies with him. Who doesn't love O'Brien? Call him Meanie. He's a great guy. This is the one and only Q episode in DS9. It is pretty awful. They really don't need Q episodes in this show. Again, because it's the least episodic of the three, so they really don't need this. So in this one, we see Vosh. Vosh comes on board. And season 1, Dr. Bashir's a total fuckboy. Like, that's all he cares about. So he's super into Vosh. He's like, yeah, I'm gonna do her. Oh, the crows just came looking for some peanuts, but I need to refill it. They already ate them all. Anyway, it is a random episode. It's so weird. I do think Charlemagne, they probably were trying to be like, remember how you love TNG? This is good too. You know, just like they did with DS9 or TNG, where the Naked Now, like, remember you loved TOS? TNG. So, oh, the crows are yelling at me. I might have to go put some nuts. Do you guys hear them? They're getting pissed that the peanuts are gone. Anyway, so Vosh, former lover of Captain Picard, they find her in the Gamma Quadrant, and they're like, how the heck did she get there? We didn't even have access to that. And they're like, that's weird, but eventually they figure out it's Q. And everybody knows about Q now. It's been spread throughout the Federation, and Q tries to, like, mess with Sisko, but he just punches him in the face. And then there's this thing where Vosh is trying to sell Gamma Quadrant relics, which... why is she even allowed to do that? Wouldn't the Federation be like, no, you stole these? Like, that's messed up. Like, she just, like... that's crazy. We don't even view that favorably, like, now. So anyway, hey, Erasmus. Yeah, it's not a great Q episode. And so Q wants Vosh back. Vosh is trying to sell this thing. The DS9 is getting pulled towards the wormhole, right? And they're like, oh my gosh. Oh, there's evidence. Her history is the evidence, Charlemagne. And so they're like, oh my god, Q, stop pulling us into the wormhole. Q's like, bro, I'm not doing it. I'm totes not doing it. Turns out one of the artifacts that Vosh brought back was like actually a living creature. And that's why they're getting... oh my god, all right, you guys. Hold on just a second. I'm gonna feed the crows. They're like throwing a fit. Alright, you guys hear me calling to the crows? Alright, put some more nuts out for them because they were really pissed off that the peanuts were gone. Okay, so, yeah, that's the end of this one. Do not care for it. I think it's just season 1 BS like any Star Trek series. Okie dokie. Here we go. Okay, this is a solid episode. Oh, God. This is a solid episode. Dax. This is the first episode where we explore Dax. So Dax is the new... so she's a Trill, but very different from that episode with DS9 Trills. I mean, TNG Trills. She looks more like, the perfect mate, you know? Who had the spots. They decided that was sexier, obviously. So she has a symbiont who lives inside her, which is like a parasite, except it's not a parasite because they're symbiotic relationship. And they fuse as like one mind. This guy, who appears in another episode of DS9, by the way, he comes on board and he kidnaps Dax. And the reason he kidnapped her is he wants her extradited for the unaliving of his father, who knew Dax's previous host, so her old body, Curzon Dax, who's a big deal in this show. Exactly, Charlemagne. She comes back. Hope I age like that lady. So then they agree to have her stand trial, or do like an extradition trial to decide if they are going to extradite her to the planet to be tried there and then like convicted. And Dax refuses to say if she's innocent. She refuses to like defend herself. And Sisko's like, what's your deal? Because Sisko was besties with Curzon. He's like, what's your problem? Why wouldn't you be honest? Finally, the actress who played Data's mother in season 7 of TNG, she comes on board, and she's like, look, I have an alibi for Dax. I know where he was at the time my husband was unalived. He was in my bed. So Dax had an affair with her, and then the son is obviously really upset. So yeah, this is a solid episode. I might even A tier this guy. Yeah, Jadzia is one of the cosplays I've always wanted to do a season 5 uniform. I bought all the supplies, but then it's a pretty involved pattern. So I ended up doing Jadzia Dax on Ryza instead. So I did the swimsuit and the sarong, and I tried to copy her hair, and it's, and I did the spots. Well, maybe B tier. Bloop, bloop, bloop. I don't think it's that good, Darth, but it is an important, like, setup episode for Dax where we get, like, a lot more info about the trills and all that. Oh my gosh, yes, Charlemagne. Ray Ovantica is my name. So this is where we get to see Dr. Bashir, actor whose name Alexander Siddig is what he goes by. At this point in the series, his name in the credits is Siddig El Fadil, but later he goes by Alexander Siddig. Yeah, he's trying to act like he's a bad guy, and it's really rough. Really rough. So this shuttle has an accident, and they go on board to help them, and Bashir tries to save this guy who's laying here unalive. He tries to save him. The guy grabs Bashir's neck and he says, "Make me live," and then he dies. And then the other person on the shuttle was the person who was in charge of getting him to jail or whatever, because this guy's a famous unaliver on his planet. He's awful, and his whole thing is he wants to live forever. So he's basically like Gamma Quadrant Voldemort. And she's like, this woman's obsessed. She's like, he's not really dead. He's not really dead. I'm telling you, he's not really dead. And then eventually you figure out, they're like, oh yeah, she's right. He's transferred his conscious into somebody else. And then you eventually find out, they think he's transferred his conscious into the police officer lady. But then eventually it's figured out he's transferred into Bashir. And so you get to see him later as Bashir, and it's hilarious. Bashir pretending to be him inside, because his acting is ridiculous. I love the guy, but it's terrible. He's like, Ray Ovantica is my name. And it's like, dude, what the heck? It's kind of like when Patrick Stewart tries to be the bad guy in that season 7 episode. It's like, oof. So yeah, they figure it all out. They get it all fixed. What's so funny, though, is in the end, he's like reduced to just like this chip where they have his DNA or whatever. And the officer's like, that's all that's left of him, right? And you give him to me. And they're like, yeah. And then she shoots it and like disintegrates it. And they all look at her all shocked. And it's like, what the heck should she have done, you guys? Like, this guy was a monster. This episode is pretty bad. I'm gonna F tier it. It's bad. It doesn't do anything for the show. The acting's terrible. Oh my gosh. Oh, I said F tier, but then this one comes up. Woof. Wait, what's D and F tier for you, Darth? I feel like you're really generous with most of these episodes. They get way better. This one is something special. So this is first contact with a Gamma Quadrant species, so it's like a big deal. These people are called what are they called? The Wadi. I was gonna say the Wari, but that's a real people in South America. The Wadi. So they come in, they're like, yes, where are the games? And so they go to Quarks. They're like, take us to Quarks. And Cisco's like, WTF. So they go to Quarks and they play all night. But then they figure out that Quark has been tried to cheat them. So they're pissed. So then they're like, all right, Quark, you can play this game with us. And it's like this weird looking board game. Next thing you know, Bashir, Dax, Kira, and Cisco are all pulled into it. Well, we don't really know what's going on at first, but eventually we figure out they've been pulled into the board game, I assume virtually or something. Is it in their brain? I don't know. And it's so funny because they basically like, it's kind of like a, what do you call those? People pay to go to them. I've never done one though. Like, people go and you have to, like, solve the puzzles. Crap, what are those called? Escape rooms. So it's kind of like an escape room kind of thing. And they get to the next room. And it's so funny because then they have to do this thing and there's Avery Brooks. How does it go? Da-da-da, count to 3, da-da-da, then count to 4, da-da-da, then 3 more, da-da-da, if you can see, da-da-da, you'll come with me. And it's so funny. And then Quark thinks they're gonna get unalived and he's like begging, but then they all come out alive and the Wadi are like, it's just a game, like what the heck? I think this episode's awful. This episode's F tier for me. I mean, it's somewhat entertaining, but there's just I don't know, guys. I mean, this one's pretty what's the word? Not corny. There's a word I'm looking for. Like, I love it in a, like, I love them all kind of way, but it's not good to me. Okay. Oh, gosh. Here's a really bad... We all have to agree the Nagus is awful, right? Alright, fine. Alright, everybody disagrees with me. I'm not putting it in A tier. I really don't even feel comfortable with C tier, but we'll make it the first C tier one. And that's much too high in my opinion, but it's a group effort. Okay, but we all agree that the Grand Nagus Sec is awful, right? Nobody likes those episodes, please? Because this is gonna be really rough if we can't agree on that. So this is when we're learning more about Ferengi culture, which I do like. I like them exploring the cultures and, like, rounding them out. So the supreme leader of the Ferengi on Ferenginar. And that here is Grand Nagus Zek, played by Sean... Oh, what's his name? Wallace Shawn from Princess Bride. The character is really obnoxious, in my opinion. And I can't stand it. I can't even remember the plot. Oh, yeah. So suddenly... Yeah, the way, the mannerisms, everything of his character, just, like, too much. So he suddenly dies... But it turns out he didn't name his son to take over for him. He named Quark. So Quark's mad, or not, Quark's happy. Everyone else is mad, and so they're all trying to conspire against him. So Rom, Quark's brother, Rom is very different in season 1. Very, very different. He's a completely different character later on. Rom and the son of the former Nagus try to unalive Quark, and the person that stops them at the last moment is... yeah, stopping at the end, as the Nagus himself, who had actually faked his death to test his son, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I do not like this episode. It's F tier for me, I'm sorry. Oh, this one's pretty good. I like this one. This gets some good Odo backstory. So the thing about Odo is we know... that he... Well, yeah, but the problem also, Charlemagne, is they completely changed his personality. Like, his voice literally changes from, like, the first few episodes. His voice the first few episodes is totally different. And then his personality just really changes. They do the whole, he's really dumb thing, and then it becomes he's actually smart thing. Like, they can't really figure him out. Anyway, part of Odo's thing is, he came from the Gamma Quadrant, but they don't really know... Well, no... He knows he came from the Gamma Quadrant. He doesn't know anything about his species. He's the only one of his species in the rest of space. He's never met the rest of them. And, so he's trying to figure that out. These guys come on board. They're bad guys that are trying to do a deal with Quark. This other guy, he's on board. Turns out he's a criminal. He unalives one of these guys, who's really mad because they're paired Miradorns who are like two halves of a whole. And then what happens? Oh yeah, so Odo is taking this guy back to his space, back to his planet for unaliving that guy. But then the guy convinces him to go to this place, and the guy has this necklace with a little bit of changeling in it. And he's like, oh yeah, I'm surprised you haven't met other changelings. I know a whole bunch of them. And Odo's like, I don't believe you. But he hadn't heard about changelings before. He was always called a shapeshifter. And so eventually he convinces Odo to go to like this cave, and he's like, this is where the changelings are, and I found the necklace. And it turns out he was lying. He was trying to get to his daughter. So he and his family were like being persecuted back on their home planet. He managed to rescue his daughter. Blue-ba-doo-ba-doo. And then Odo helps them escape by faking their death. Is that what he does? And then he sends them to go live with the Vulcans to get repatriated or whatever. So he ends up saving them. And he learns some stuff. A lot of what the guy says, even though the guy had actually never met any changelings, a lot of what he said about changeling was true. Like, they're harsh in their judgment, they care about order. So, like, a lot of what he says is very true about the changelings. So it's true. He was lying, but it's true. This is B. B. Okay. Okay. I just feel like almost every other season is so much better. So Kaiopaka is the supreme religious figure on Bajor. She comes to visit Sisko. They're like, let's go see the wormhole. And they take her, Dr. Bashir, Kira, and Sisko out to go see the wormhole. They end up crash landing on this planet, and Kaiopaka dies. And Kira, yeah, she's like the Pope. And she's the most important person on Bajor. They revere her because she helped them get through the occupation. She dies. Kira is hysteric because of what I just said. Then they discover these two people who are like these two groups that have been fighting. The Nor, what is it? The Ennis and the Null Ennis. Yeah, they've been fighting on this moon, and they are fighting each other. Yeah, that makes sense, Charlemagne. And they're just constantly battling each other, and Sisko's like, hey, but it turns out they never die because they're put here as punishment, so that they have to fight each other for all eternity, but can never die from fighting each other, so they just come back to life. And they figure out, oh, Kaiopaka's not dead. Oh, except because of the whole thing on the planet where you don't die. But then it comes out that anyone who had died on the planet can never leave the planet. So Kaiopaka is stuck there, and she's like, this is my mission, to bring these people to peace. And maybe someday we'll get you off here. Spoiler alert, they never do. Yeah, not my favorite episode. It is, I have to agree with you, Darth. It's a really dumb ending for Kaiopaka. I feel like they could have done something a lot more interesting for her. Oh gosh. This episode. Yeah. So Chief O'Brien and Bashir go down to the planet to try to heal this guy here. He's dying. He's the what do they call him? The what's he called? What is he called? Woban. He's the Syrah. So this planet regularly experiences this thing where like this, I don't even know how to describe it, this phenomenon, and this guy protects them from it by telling them a story, and it fixes it. And then he dies because he's old. I know, right? And then he's like, oh, O'Brien's the new Syrah. And they're like, oh, okay. And O'Brien's like, guys, I'm not staying here. I don't know how to do this. What the heck? They send him some ladies to pleasure him, and he's like, guys, I'm married. It's pretty funny. Then this guy tries to unalive O'Brien, and it turns out he was supposed to be the next Syrah, but he had failed his test. Yeah, this episode is bizarre. He reveals that the phenomenon that they experience is fake. It's controlled by a ring that the Syrah wears. The phenomenon was created to bring the people together and stop their conflict by uniting them with the story. It's really stupid. So in the end, they help the junior Syrah become the Syrah. There's also the story where Nog and Jake are into this girl who is a leader from a Bajoran group fighting another group, and they befriend her. Nog's super into her. So yeah, that's fine. It is not great. I'm giving it a D tier. Yeah, I don't think it's good. It is weird. This one is better in a lot of ways, although this old guy really pisses me off. I do not like this guy. So Kira goes to evacuate this moon because it's going to be converted into a power plant. So she has to get all these people off. But this guy's like, nope, nope, I'm not getting off. I won't do it. So she's like trying to get him off, but she befriends him, and then it's hard because she is uncomfortable working for as a government member, and she doesn't want to force this guy off because he came here, he settled here during the occupation when bad things happened to him. So it's becomes this ethical issue for her, and in the end she does get him off, but it's sad. This guy, I hate this guy though, he pisses me off. And then Jake and Nog, it's actually a really funny side story where they have Yamek sauce, which is Cardassian, and Quark has a bunch of it and he can't get rid of it because there's no Cardassians anymore. So then they trade, and they trade. Ferengis are the Yankee traders. So they trade it and trade it and trade it. Eventually they trade it for some land in Bajor. I think it's on Bajor. And then in the end, that land becomes really crucial for some reason. I can't remember where it is. So they're able to sell it for a lot. The Jano Consortium or whatever. So that side bit is pretty funny. I do enjoy that. B tier, just because I really don't like that guy. He just really rubs me the wrong way. That's a really good explanation, Charlemagne. She feels like the oppressor. Because, she's forcing this guy off the land, and, she doesn't, in some way she doesn't have a right to, so it's hard. Yeah, the oven they built. It's cool. Oh my god, you guys. Oh my god. Yeah. This one is rough. This is some TNG BS. Like TNG Season 1 BS. Everybody's imaginations are being manifested into physical form. So it starts with Rumpelstiltskin because they were telling a story to Molly about Rumpelstiltskin. So everybody's imagination becomes real thing, like a version of Dax that's super into Bashir. It's so absurd. This baseball player that's supposed to be from the 22nd century or something. It's awful. And then eventually they figure out something bad is happening to the station, and eventually they figure it out. It came from Dax's imagination. So they figure that whole thing out is just all imagination. The end. It's terrible. What's the name of that baseball player? Shoot. It's gonna bug me. Bukbokai. That's right. Yeah, she had to get him off the planet because it would have poisoned him. So she saved his life, but he feels it ended his life because he just felt like that place was everything to him. So it's a sad episode. Oh, first episode. This episode was the first one to have Lwaxana Troi. I firmly believe that Lwaxana Troi and Odo should have been endgame. I firmly believe it. Not based on this episode, based on the last one she's in. They belong together. Anyway, so she's on board with some other ambassadors. There's a Vulcan, there's others. Anyway, and so Bashir is assigned to them, and they're being super obnoxious. They're like, we want to see the captain right now. Like, we want to do this and this. They're being really obnoxious, except for Lwaxana, who's just enjoying the casino or Quark's area. Odo helps solve the crime of who stole her brooch, I think. And so then she's infatuated with him. And so she's really into him, and Odo, doesn't know what to do. Because Odo's figuring out humanity and romance, sexuality, every aspect of humanity he doesn't quite understand. He's figuring it out. It's not really innate to his people, we later find. So he's like, what do I do with this woman? To Cisco, and Cisco's like, go for it, bro. And he's like, what? And then they end up trapped on an elevator. Right, she can't read his mind, and she's just impressed by him too, like the way he solves the case and everything. And she has established that she finds it erotic when she can't read a man's mind. That was established on TNG. So then they get trapped on an elevator together, and Odo's like freaking out, and she's like, what's the problem, Odo? Well, he's right at the end of his cycle where he needs to turn into goo, you know, turn into his natural state, but he doesn't want to do it in front of her. He's ashamed. Yeah, it's a great scene. And so then finally she's like, Odo, and he's like, what? And she turns and she took her wig off, and she's like, she's like, I never let anybody see me with my wig off because it's too normal and I don't feel, you know, comfortable with it. And so basically she like connects with him, and she's like, it's okay. So then he turns into, I know, I tear up too. And she catches him and she turns to goo in her dress. Like she like holds him. And Bashir impresses the ambassadors and everything is well. Is this the thing with the pup? The pup thing? Let me try to remember. Yep, the pup. Yeah, I'm not gonna go into that. It doesn't matter. It's silly. So yeah, this is a pretty good episode. Oof. I'm not giving it S tier, but I'll give it A. Oh, I feel like it's just, I don't feel the A. I feel B. I just feel like there's, even though I like this one, I feel like there's way better ones. What is this one? Oh, this one's terrible. I hate this one. All right, fine. I'll give it A. But this one's terrible. This is so much like, it's similar to Masaka is Waking season 7 episode of TNG. Their minds all get taken over by the like it says, a telepathic imprint of a culture that destroyed itself, so they all turn on each other. It's so weird and ridiculous. And Cisco does this thing where he's like building a clock, and like it's so weird. And they like end up taking sides against each other, but Odo is not taken over by it, so he solves it. I'm sorry, but this is F tier. This is terrible. You spin me right. Oh yes, this one's good. You think that one's good, Darth Calabac? This one is so good. Yeah, they replay the events of the coup. Yeah, I love this one. Okay, so this Cardassian guy comes on. Kira sees him and he's instantly flagged. She's like, this is the guy that led a horrible death camp, because essentially the Cardassian occupation of Bajor was like very similar to like the Holocaust. Yeah, it's super good. This one's good. This one makes me cry too. So this guy gets flagged. Kira's like, this is the guy that led the death camp that I helped liberate, and she's like really upset. Like she's really emotional because she went there, she saw it. The guy's like, I'm not him, and like they jail him. And eventually so long story short, they eventually figure out this guy is not the guy that led the death camp. Who he really was a guy, I'm gonna cry right now. It's literally he was really just an ordinary Cardassian who was a file clerk, but he was at the death camp, and he can't like live. He's overtaken by the extreme guilt of what he witnessed, and that he was too cowardly to do anything about it. So he was, complicit, essentially, and he feels just tremendous guilt. So what he does is he gets surgery, plastic surgery, to turn his face to look like that leader of the camp, who's actually not alive anymore. He's dead. He died years ago. So he gets plastic surgery to look like that camp leader because he wants to get punished for what was done, and he wants Bajor to have the catharsis of punishing him. I know, it's very emotional, because when Kira figures it out, this guy just like breaks down, and it's super freaking sad. He's like, no, I have to be punished. We all have to be punished. And then he's like, and Kira's like, I'm not gonna let one more innocent person die, and it's super sad. So he gets released, but then in the end, this Bajoran sees him walking by and stabs him and unalives him. Oh my god, I'm gonna cry, because this scene is so important, because then he died, and Kira's like, why'd you do it? He wasn't the guy. And he says, and the guy says, he was a Cardassian. That's enough. And then Kira looks at him and she says, no, it isn't. And so it's like this, it's hugely important in Kira's character development, because she's seeing that there were good Cardassians that, he calls himself, you have no idea how terrible it was to be a coward. So it's super sad, because she realizes she had so much hate towards him, but realizes he was this innocent, good man who didn't deserve stuff, and like, oh my gosh, it's S tier. It's very good. This is the stuff that makes DS9 so good. Yeah, this is like peak DS9. So good. I cry every time. I just like cry my eyes out. All right, so this episode, I know it's definitely up there for me too. This episode, this is Kai, or nope, she's, my bad, spoiler. This is, shoot, what are their level of people called? Vedic Win. They're like, what, deacons or something? I don't know that much about Catholicism, which is funny because my father's Catholic. She comes and we meet these two Vedics, Vedig Win and Vedig, Bareil. And they're both campaigning to be the next Kai. Vedic Win is very much like, she reminds me a lot of, that lady in Harry Potter, Umbridge. She's very Umbridge vibes. So Vedig Bareil is the favorite to be the next Kai, but Kai Wynn or Vedic Wynn is an Orthodox Bajoran. She wants to go back to traditions, whereas Vedic Bareil is much more about like peace and tolerance. So there's an accident, like a bombing that happens at the school that Keiko's teaching because they're angry. So Vedic Wynn starts this whole thing where they're angry because she's teaching that the wormhole is controlled by the wormhole aliens instead of the prophets. And then but she's like, well, they're prophets, they're religious figures, they're not wormhole aliens. So she starts this whole thing to divide everyone. And then she tricks, and so she uses the bombing to get Vedic Bareil to come to the station. Because she's trying to get this lady here, Neela, isn't it? Who's friends with O'Brien. She's an engineer. She gets her to try to unalive, can I say the word assassinate? Unalive Bareil. But they're able to stop it. They catch her just in time. And everybody knows Wynn is behind it, but she won't admit it. And Neela won't admit it. She says she serves the prophets. So it's a pretty good, I would say A, because this gets some important stuff going that's going to stick throughout. But yeah, I love O'Brien. So that's an important one. And I guess that's the last episode of season 1. Is that right? Anybody? Yep, 20. Yeah, season 2, episode 1. Okay. So anyway, yeah, we're introduced to Vedig Wynn, who's really important. Vedig Bareil will be pretty important. Lots of importantness. No, we're gonna do the preview, and Klingon word of the day, Charlemagne. Don't worry, next weekend. Oh, my neck. So yeah, season 1, definitely the worst season, but I feel it's the strongest of the 3 series. Because they get straight into these interesting themes. Like, I don't think did I even have an S tier on TNG season 1? Maybe. My least favorite is probably If Wishes Were Horses. Ooh, or maybe Dramatis Personae. I really think those two are terrible. But yeah, Duet. That is what DS9 is all about for me. The super sad episodes that like explore these really important themes, like these deep themes. So anyway, Klingon word of the day today is friend. The Klingon word for friend is jupe. I don't know how to make it plural, so I'll just add an S for today. You guys are all my jupes. Darth, I think I responded to that in Discord. I haven't had thought about it since then, just because I've been busy getting back to work and working on the other stuff, but we can read. Yes, spelled correctly, Charlemagne. Jupe. The J makes the J, the U makes the U, and then P is regular, so jupe. And so now, before I take off, previewing episode 3 of The Royal Hour, which comes out on Monday, and which tier 3 members have already seen. Any that have watched it. I'll have to look into how you make it plural so I can figure out how to say that you guys are my jupes correctly. All right, here it comes.
There have been oh so many diseases that have plagued mankind throughout history. The Black Death, Smallpox.
Cooties!
Oh yes, especially cooties. But a new scourge has been infecting Nikkes. It's called Doro, or its scientific name. Chime, I thought we agreed. No words more than 8 letters long in the teleprompter. Ahem. As I was saying, the Dorovirus has been spreading among Nikkes at a disturbing rate. But what is Dorification? Where did it come from? And is there hope for a cure? The Royal Hour investigative team searches for answers. Tonight. Also, for the record, I could totally have pronounced that super long name if I wanted to, but it would be, garnish of me to show off my royal vocabulary.
It's garish, my king.
Wells, just play the intro.
I'm Chime.
I'm Marion.
I'm Kilo.
I'm Wells. I'm Trony.
I'm Crown. That story tonight on The Royal Hour. We see them everywhere. From Reddit to Discord to, well, presumably there's a Pixiv tag for it, but even my kingly courage isn't enough to search for that. As I was saying, we see them everywhere. Doros. But what causes dorification? I talked with a leading researcher on the subject.
Dorification is a mimetic virus transmitted via synaptic propagation, facilitated through a
Oh my god, she won't stop talking. Okay, just look interested and she'll wrap up soon. Any second now.
Womp 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 womp.
Wow, she just keeps going. I should really have sent Trony to do this. Wait, why is Trony in the kingdom again? Oh right, I kidnapped her at the end of the 5-part Abandoned Wishes fan story. Wow, that ending sure was crazy, especially with that mimetic virus caused by Marion's 500-page smutty fanfic about her and the commander. I wonder whatever happened to that wish-granting genie Nikke, Scheherazade. Will export bring her back? Oh, then I can wish for a bigger kitchen for the kingdom, with a magic cabinet that has an unlimited supply of flaming hot Cheetos. Oh, I think Mana's almost done talking. Okay, Crown, look like you were paying attention. Which live 2D expression is it again? This one? Nope. Maybe this one. Darn, just go with the default one. Yeah, that's it. Nailed it.
Exploiting neuroplasticity to implant itself within the host's cognitive framework.
Fascinating, truly fascinating. But why male models?
What?
Now that...
All right, so that was about 3 minutes of about 9. If you haven't watched Abandoned Wishes, go watch that. Also, I looked in my Klingon dictionary, and plurals are a bit complicated, but as far as I can tell, for plural of friends, I would say jupu. Jupu. So you guys are my jupu. All right. See you all Monday at 11 a.m. for the premiere of the rest of this episode. And Monday at 8 p.m. for my next stream. TBD what I'm going to do. Haven't figured it out. All right. Goodbye, jupu. I think it would be a double P, Erasmus, so jupe plus poo. Jupu. I don't know where the accent, would it be jupu or jupu? I think it's jupu. I'll have to double check. All right. Have a good day, everybody.